Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Now, a lot of us are under a forced ban on pesticides, so many of us cannot use many of the more efficient pesticides and therefore have to rely on good practices. We're talking about good maintenance, good weeding, etc. And it works to a certain extent. But when you're overpowered, you rely on other things such as beneficial insects and not planting things that are susceptible to other diseases, which limits your gardening, which limits your ability to have certain plants in your garden. Now, we know that if we plant too many of one kind, then all of a sudden this type of monoculture encourages other types of both insects and disease. A fine example of this is tar spot on maples. We've planted so many Norway maples and Norway maple varieties that tar spot has become an endemic basically here in Niagara. Depending on the weather and the conditions, sometimes it can be very, very heavily tar spot or a little lighter. At this moment, so far this year, it has been fairly light, but the conditions have been such that there is very little stress on the maples, and we've had lots of rain, we've had lots of moisture in the evenings and nights that dry up fairly quickly, but at the same time, these shallow planted trees are not getting the foot traffic, and their roots are not being trampled on by people walking around because we're out there in the rain, it's wet. So there are many other things that you have to do, but if you're going to use beneficial insects, you had better educate yourself. First of all, there are certain things you need to know. One, you need to know what insect you're after. Two, what insects you can use to, I will not say cure it, but to balance the nature against too many of one and too little of another. You're going to have to do a count. By that, I mean a population count. If you don't have a large enough problem, by that I mean enough of the insects that are going to be attacked and eaten or killed by the beneficials, then you put the beneficials out and basically they're going to leave. There's no food if they don't have the right conditions, whether that's moisture. It could be the fact that you've got the wrong insect at the wrong time of year or at the wrong stage of development. So you go and put out the beneficials at the wrong stage, and they can't actually do battle against the bad insects. So you have to know their life cycles, and you have to apply them at an appropriate time in an appropriate quantities at approximately the right time of day. It's gotten down to a certain degree where the color of your clothing that you're wearing when you are applying the beneficials is important. Certain insects, you don't wear blue. Others, you don't wear dark clothing. Others, you don't wear light clothing. You're going to have to put out yellow sticky boards. These yellow sticky boards are going to capture insects so you can do a population count. You're going to have to pay for all these insects. These insects are not inexpensive. You're going to have to provide or attract them, which may mean that you're going to also need the conditions and the plant materials that they actually feed on in order to reproduce and move on to eat the beneficial, or I should say the beneficials can eat the bad insects. You follow me? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work and a lot of knowledge and a lot of planning and a lot of education. You have to know the development of the plant material. If a plant is being eaten only for its flowers, you're certainly not going to attack it with beneficials when there are no flowers. When you are going to go after, let's say, Japanese beetle, you're going to need both the attractants, both the flower scents as well as the pheromones. One's going to attract the females, one's going to attract the males, and you have to do both. You're going to have to dispose of these living insects, which of course will eventually die, but if you've got enough population, you're going to be filling your Japanese beetle trap tremendously quickly. You're going to have to empty them. Sometimes you're going to have to kill them with soapy water and actually literally soak them and the trap in order to kill them. And it's going to take some time to do because they're really tough guys. You can kill them with nematodes in the larval stage, but you've got to get them in the larval stage and not in the pupa stage or in the egg stage. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to know the insect, the stages, and the life cycles. Also, if you're using pheromones and attracting them, you're going to attract more than you've got. You are literally going to attract, in this particular case, possibly for up to almost a mile, Japanese beetles to your garden. Now, is there a benefit? Yeah. There's 250 plants, roughly, that the Japanese beetle will feed on. Some of them are going to be in your garden. So are you going to use that to attract more insects? If you're going to actually have plants and put plants into your garden, you're going to have to know what plants will be useful to what insects that are actually your problem in your garden. So, and all the conditions are going to have to be met. So you're going to have to know that. So if you're going to do this and you're going to start to educate yourself and you're going to use beneficial insects, then you had better start reading. And one of the best books that there is for beneficial bugs is Attracting Beneficial Bugs to Your Garden by Jessica Walzer. She is also the author of the book Good Bug, Bad Bug. Attracting Beneficial Bugs to Your Garden is published by Timber Press. It is an extremely good book because A, full color pictures. There is a whole section just on the plants that you can use to attract the beneficial insects to your garden. And it goes through step by step and shows you which ones are beneficial. Because sometimes, and I've had this before, people are trying to kill off lady beetles in the younger instars because they think they're bad bugs because they don't look like a ladybug. So you got to know what they look like in different life stages. Very often you're going to have to make sure there's enough food for them to eat and that they do like it here and the weather and the conditions are such. Very often, sometimes the ladybugs are from far enough away that they're not used to our climate, etc. And then they can also be an invasive species, such as the Asian lady beetles, which have been moving north and are here now, which you'll know if you've got them because they actually bite people if they feel like it. Where the regular ladybugs are less aggressive and they get pushed out by the Asian lady beetles, which were imported in order to control aphids in greenhouses down in Louisiana and have been moving their way up the Ohio Valley on the winds, following the soybean aphids and the soybean crop all the way up until they're here now and having a very good time in the grapes and vineyards. So if you're going to go and look at this book, this is great because it gives you also insectary garden plants. So it gives you a list of plants and how much to plant and for different types of gardens. There's one for vegetable gardens. There's a general insectary garden plan. There is ones for woody ornamentals, and they sort of lay it all out for you to plan and give you an idea of how to do it. There's a modular insectary plan and many others. There's borders. How do you put in a border? And where? Now, I will warn you about this, that very often the best borders and gardens for the beneficial insects have a tendency to look very weedy. They have a tendency to look unkempt and not very attractive. So you need to be able to balance that with something attractive and work them in through. So I tell you that to make sure that you realize that you can do it. You can interplant good as opposed to bad plants that look good, but also will actually benefit you in whatever area you want, whether it's the vegetables, the woody shrubs, etc. So you need to go through and take a look, and you can actually incorporate herbs into the vegetable garden to help you as well. You can purchase the beneficials, and there are many, many different sources for them. We are lucky that way. We have some of the best sources in North America and in Ontario and even here in Niagara. So understand this. They have to be fresh, quick, and applied. So you got to do all your research, get ready, go buy them, have them shipped to you, or go and pick them up. And you have to be ready, and the conditions and the weather have to be such that they're ready to go. You can't just throw them in the hot car and then expect them to go out into your garden without some water, etc., or other conditions they're going to need. You might be able to keep them cool. You might be able to keep them in a refrigerator for a small period of time, but you have to check with the insect provider to make sure that you're following the rules. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting your money. So Jessica Walser's book, published by Timber Press, Attracting Beneficial Bugs to Your Garden, is really a great way to learn to control pests the natural way in your garden. It's a great book. It's distributed by Thomas Allen here in Canada, and you will like the book. It is extremely colorful, accurate, and I can't say enough about the large number of well-photographed insects, diseases, bugs, the good ones, the bad ones as well. So, this is the book to buy. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. Please listen to my radio show on CFBU 103.7 FM Saturday mornings from 8 till 9 and streaming online at cfbu.ca.